Picture yourself moving through an ordinary day, perhaps walking casually, not expecting anything unusual, when out of nowhere a person hurls words meant to slice deep into your confidence. They might sneer at the way you look, attempt to discredit your value, or belittle your accomplishments with calculated cruelty. The typical reaction for most is immediate combustion. Voices rise, tempers flare, defenses tumble out uncontrollably, and the emotions of the moment seize control. Yet centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli articulated a truth that still escapes the grasp of the majority. The individual who allows insults to dictate their behavior has already lost the contest. At the very moment you let anger twist your response, you've unknowingly surrendered authority to the one who struck at you. Handing your emotional state to others is equivalent to giving away your power with no resistance. But there is an alternative path, one that elevates you above ordinary human reaction, one that leads to a place where no provocation can rattle you. Imagine reaching a state where the verbal daggers of others slip away harmlessly, like rain sliding down stone walls, leaving no mark behind. Imagine cultivating a calmness so complete that it unsettles everyone who tries to disturb it. Such serenity intimidates far more than visible fury ever could, for stillness is harder to comprehend and harder to break. That path of mental strength is what this teaching is designed to unfold. It is not casual advice, but a set of severe, timeless principles, dark laws of composure that Machiavelli himself would have wielded to remain unshaken amid storms of chaos. Follow them, and you transform into someone who cannot be rattled, who never concedes control, and who denies the satisfaction of collapse to those eager to see you unravel. This is the art of becoming untouchable. To begin grasping these laws, one must acknowledge a central fact. Provocation only works if you authorize it. When another person throws an insult your way, the utterance itself is nothing more than sound waves, air molded into language, vibrations fading into silence. The sting of the insult is not carried in the words themselves, but born from the meaning you assign and the reaction you choose. Your reaction is the power they seek, and the second you give it, you shift the balance of control away from yourself. Refusing to react does not indicate weakness, as many mistakenly believe. The opposite is true. Refusal to be moved is the ultimate expression of strength. Detachment from provocation is not passive submission, but complete sovereignty. A person who remains calm when others rage becomes unpredictable. The unpredictable cannot be manipulated. The unmanipulated grow dangerous, and dangerous individuals command respect. By mastering this art, you step into a role that unsettles adversaries because they cannot push your buttons. Machiavelli's approach was always rooted in control. The one who regulates their inner state controls the outer game. That is the stance you are being taught to take. The first law of this transformation is the expectation of disrespect. Naive souls wander through the world believing fairness to be the natural order. They expect kindness, honesty, and consistent respect, yet life is seldom that generous. When disrespect arrives, they are unprepared, wounded, and shaken. But those who understand the harsher logic of human nature see clearly. Insults and mockery are rarely accidents. They are deliberate tactics employed to test boundaries, to see if you can be bent, to measure whether you will yield. If you prepare for envy, betrayal, and derision in advance, none of it catches you unaware. You resemble a traveler in a perilous district who anticipates danger and walks alert. Life itself is that perilous district, and most stroll through it with lowered guard, baffled when they are cut by cruelty. Machiavelli's wisdom whispers that the wise anticipate what the foolish never see coming. When you foresee hostility, every attempt loses its sting. You are not shocked, not caught, not shaken. You remain solid as though carved from stone. Expecting disrespect does not make you cynical. It makes you immune. The second law is the discipline of silence. Human beings crave visible reactions. When an instigator mocks you, their entire aim is to drag out your anger, to watch you defend yourself, to pull you into their storm. If you explode, they win. If you remain quiet, you win. Silence is not emptiness. It is a blade sharper than any insult. When you answer with nothing, your opponent begins to squirm. They press harder. They repeat themselves. They doubt their effectiveness. The mystery of your stillness unsettles them. Silence breeds uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds discomfort. Discomfort breeds respect. Machiavelli observed that fear outweighs affection and power, and silence creates precisely that subtle fear. But note this. Your silence must not echo the silence of the wounded who lack words. It must be deliberate silence, chosen silence, silence radiating strength. The silence of the weak pleads for pity. The silence of the strong commands attention. Cultivate it. Train yourself to pause before replying. Count in your mind. Hold back your impulse. Observe how their confidence falters while yours deepens. Your silence becomes the battlefield they cannot win upon. The third law warns against betraying yourself with unchecked emotions. When you rage uncontrollably, cry openly in conflict, or over-explain in desperation, you announce your vulnerabilities to the world. You map out the exact terrain of your weaknesses. Those who wish to harm you need only strike at the spots you've already displayed. Yet emotional existence is not itself the problem. Every human feels the heat of anger, the pull of despair, the tremor of fear. What separates the formidable from the fragile is not the absence of emotion, but mastery over its expression. The one in command feels everything yet reveals nothing. The untrained show everything and command nothing. When you feel the fire rising, acknowledge it without displaying it. Take control of the narrative inside your mind before words escape your lips. Breathe, distance yourself mentally, and imagine advising a friend who stood where you stand. Detachment gives you perspective, and perspective hands you the reins of response. Emotions are signals, not orders. They alert you, but do not determine your actions. You alone decide that. Calmness in the midst of turmoil is the mark of dominion. The fourth law cautions against the instinct to defend. When someone challenges you, your reflex is to justify, to prove, to argue. But defense grants legitimacy to their accusation. If you scramble to explain, you confirm that their words matter. Those with true strength seldom rush to defend themselves. Confidence radiates not from endless explanations, but from the refusal to dignify petty attacks. Control the frame instead of accepting theirs. Reframe their insult, redirect the exchange, dismiss it entirely if it serves you. Laughter, indifference, or a simple change of subject often dismantle their attempt more powerfully than any justification. Remember that when you adopt their frame, you play their game. When you create your own, you force them into yours. Machiavelli taught that appearance and perception are more powerful than hidden truths. When you appear unbothered, you embody strength, even if fury simmers beneath the surface. Control the stage upon which the interaction unfolds, and you command the outcome without ever defending. The fifth law demands detachment from all opinions, whether wrapped in praise or criticism. Society teaches that we should fear condemnation and crave approval, yet both chains bind equally. If your sense of value swells when praised, it will shatter when criticized. If you depend on compliments, you will also dread insults. Both make you a prisoner of external voices. The path of strength is standing on an internal foundation, discipline, principles, and values that exist regardless of outside judgment. This does not mean ignoring feedback. It means filtering feedback through the lens of usefulness rather than emotional reaction. Let criticism that sharpens you be absorbed, and let empty slander roll away. Accept praise with appreciation, but without dependency. Never let either dictate your self-perception. Machiavelli judged rulers by the quality of advisors they kept, not by the applause of the crowd. Likewise, measure yourself by the standards of those who truly matter, the wise and trusted few, not by the noise of the multitude. In detachment lies liberation. The sixth law centers on reinforcement. Think of your mind as a student constantly learning through reward and punishment. Each time you maintain composure under provocation, reinforce the behavior. Celebrate it. Give yourself a small pleasure or recognition. Conversely, each time you falter and react emotionally, impose discipline, deny yourself an indulgence, add an extra task, remind yourself of the cost. This is not cruelty toward yourself, but deliberate conditioning. Just as athletes train muscles by rewarding progress and punishing lapses, you train your psyche to default toward calm. With repetition, calmness becomes instinct, while reactive outbursts feel unnatural. Over time, control becomes your natural posture. The seventh law insists on controlling access to your attention. Human beings constantly demand pieces of your focus. Messages, calls, arguments, endless attempts to occupy your mental space. When you grant free access to your attention, you lower its value. Those who can easily reach you begin to feel entitled to your energy. Machiavelli would argue that scarcity creates value. If you are not available at every beck and call, your presence begins to carry weight. The person who withholds their attention carefully is seen as powerful, while the one always rushing to respond appears desperate. Guard your focus as if it were treasure. Decide deliberately who earns your time and who does not. Withdraw from meaningless quarrels, decline to engage in shallow exchanges, and keep your energy concentrated. Your limited availability makes others calculate before they speak. And when you do choose to respond, your words land with greater impact. Attention, like gold, becomes more valuable the rarer it is. The eighth law directs you to embrace indifference toward outcomes you cannot control. Most people collapse under pressure because they cling too tightly to results. They need victory, need recognition, need to win every exchange. That desperation betrays them. Those who appear desperate are easiest to manipulate because their opponents know exactly what they want. But when you embody indifference, when you detach from needing any specific outcome, you grow unshakable. If insults cannot compel a response and victories or losses cannot define you, you become a paradox that unsettles the predictable patterns of human behavior. Machiavelli's philosophy rested on adaptability. He knew rigid obsession often leads to destruction, while flexible detachment keeps one resilient. Indifference does not mean you lack ambition. It means you play the game without being enslaved by its results. You act with precision, yet you remain calm whether the outcome falls in your favor or against it. In that calmness lies terrifying strength. The ninth law highlights the subtle power of calculated distance. When adversaries or even allies feel too close, they believe they know your habits, your weaknesses, and your predictable responses. Intimacy without boundaries often turns into exploitation. Distance, however, restores control. By withholding pieces of yourself, by keeping part of your life and intentions veiled, you create an aura that cannot be pierced. People grow uneasy when they cannot fully read you, and that unease turns into respect. Machiavelli emphasized the importance of perception, for perception often shapes reality more than truth itself. When others perceive you as mysterious, they tread carefully. They wonder what you know, what you plan, and what you might be capable of. Do not display every card in your hand. Do not reveal every thought in your mind. Strategic distance ensures no one ever fully grasps your depth, and that uncertainty makes you formidable. The 10th and final law demands mastery of presence. Presence is not about loudness, nor is it about domination through noise. It is the quiet authority that fills a room when you enter, the gravity of composure that makes others pause before addressing you. Presence is built on the cumulative practice of all the previous laws, expecting disrespect without surprise, wielding silence as a weapon, concealing emotion, refusing to defend, detaching from opinions, conditioning your mind, restricting your attention, practicing indifference and maintaining distance. When combined, these disciplines radiate outward as presence. People notice without knowing why. They measure their words. They hesitate to test you. They fear the calm certainty in your eyes. Machiavelli would call this the essence of command. Not the authority given by title or position, but the authority generated by the very force of your character. Presence is the crown that rests upon the head of one who has mastered themselves completely. When all these laws are woven into your daily existence, you rise above ordinary vulnerability. The insults that once triggered you now dissolve into emptiness. The manipulations that once controlled you now slide past without purchase. You become a fortress, not because walls shield you, but because no attack can reach the core of your being. That fortress unsettles everyone who encounters it, for they see that you cannot be toyed with, cannot be provoked, cannot be broken. This is the highest form of power, not the ability to control others directly, but the ability to deny them control over you. By embodying these laws, you achieve what Machiavelli himself valued most: independence of mind and sovereignty of spirit. And when you reach that point, when you stand untouchable in a world full of provocation, you discover a truth deeper than power itself. Freedom is not found in ruling others, but in mastering the only kingdom that matters: yourself. Whenever you find yourself reacting with raw emotion when composure would have been possible, the discipline must come afterward. Rather than rewarding yourself for weakness, you impose an act of structure upon your own behavior. It might mean forcing your body through an additional workout when fatigue already lingers, plunging into the sting of an icy shower when your instinct craves comfort, or cutting away the usual evening distractions that soften the edges of life. Each act of deliberate discipline is not punishment, but training, a reminder to your subconscious that losing control has consequences while maintaining calm brings ease. Slowly, your mind begins to bind serenity with reward and rash reaction with discomfort. This inversion hardwires composure into your instincts until it ceases to be an effort. Many waste their lives relying only on the fragile flame of willpower. Willpower weakens with use, burns low when you need it most, and deserts you at the moment of pressure. True mastery lies not in sheer determination, but in systems. Systems transform self-control from a struggle into an automatic setting. They make wise choices natural and unwise choices foreign. Machiavelli once warned that people often deceive themselves more easily than others deceive them, and clinging to the illusion that you can lean on willpower forever is the greatest self-deception of all. Build mechanisms that shape your behavior automatically, and strength becomes default. Over time, responding to provocation with icy calm feels not like effort, but like instinct itself, the path of least resistance. Though it takes time, repetition, and relentless consistency, the reward is a transformation into someone for whom losing composure feels unnatural, a state of being that makes you almost untouchable. The next lesson is indifference, not as apathy, but as a deliberate weapon. The average person assumes that when they are insulted or challenged, retaliation is the only honorable path. They argue, they prove, they spar with words and emotions. But the master knows the truth. The more you care, the more they control you. The less you care, the more they suffer. Indifference is torment to those who want to command your attention. When you rage, you confirm their influence. When you remain unmoved, you broadcast their irrelevance. Think for a moment about someone who genuinely disregards public judgment. The reactions around them swing between admiration and obsession. Some revere them for their strength, while others exhaust themselves seeking acknowledgement from a wall that will never move. That is the unmatched potency of indifference. It delivers no energy, no validation, no recognition. When an insult is met with total absence of concern, not anger, not sarcasm, simply emptiness, it reverberates more painfully than any harsh retort. The aggressor feels erased, unseen, invalidated. Yet this must be authentic, not staged. Pretended indifference reeks of insecurity. Genuine indifference radiates effortless superiority. You develop it by fastening your emotions to what truly matters: your craft, your ambitions, your chosen relationships. When you pour your energy into building yourself, trivial provocations lose all significance. Machiavelli wrote of the lion and the fox, each possessing strengths that compensate for the other. Indifference is your fox-like ability to sidestep traps entirely. You see provocation for what it is, refuse to step into it, and stride on without pause. Every hostile word, every mocking gesture, every attempt to cut you down carries within it a form of energy. The question is whether you will squander it or weaponize it. Ordinary people burn that energy uselessly in arguments, in spirals of anger, in mental loops replaying what was said. They exhaust themselves fighting battles that never mattered. The intelligent, however, redirect the energy toward building. If someone sneers at your potential, let it ignite your work ethic until your results silence them without words. If they attack your appearance, let it drive you into physical discipline until strength and refinement glare back at them. If they laugh at your intellect, let it fuel a hunger for learning that transforms the insult into your sharpest blade. Each insult, when harnessed, becomes fuel for growth instead of fire for destruction. Remember, the attacker always reveals more about themselves than about you. Their words expose their fears, their insecurities, their sense of where you might be weak. Use that information as a mirror. If they strike at an area of vulnerability, fortify it until it is no longer a weakness. When their arrows meet armor, their efforts collapse. Machiavelli despised stagnation. He spoke of overthrowing the status quo rather than preserving it. You too must overthrow their low expectations, overturn their illusions of control, and redirect every attack into a step higher. Victims allow attacks to shrink them. Victors forge strength from them. The critic becomes your unwitting trainer, and every attempt to diminish you becomes inspiration to ascend. Now comes the law of cold calculation, the art of deciding with precision when to strike and when to let go. Most believe the only choices after betrayal are forgiveness or revenge. They either swallow pain in silence or lash out in fury. Machiavelli knew the truth. Revenge is not obligation, but option. To retaliate blindly is to be ruled by anger. To forgive without analysis is to invite repeated harm. The master calculates. If retaliation serves a clear purpose, protecting your reputation, signaling strength to others, securing a strategic advantage, then patience is your ally. And the response comes later, when it cuts deepest and costs you least. But when vengeance offers no tangible gain, the wise conserve their energy. They invest their strength in building empires, not wasting it on skirmishes that feed pride but starve progress. Ask yourself, will this response advance my goals? Will it protect what truly matters? Will it teach others to respect my boundaries? If the answer is no, walk away without hesitation. That is not weakness, but strategy. Many ruin themselves obeying pride, fighting every insult as if honor demanded it. Pride enslaves them, makes them predictable, drains their resources. Cold calculation liberates. You act only when gain is certain and ignore everything else. Every strike is deliberate, chosen, and devastating. Every silence is also chosen, denying enemies the satisfaction of a battle they crave. Strength is not fighting always, but knowing precisely when to fight and when to disappear. Finally comes the law of detachment, the armor that makes you unreachable. People can only wound you through attachment. They must find something you cling to desperately. Your reputation, your possessions, your relationships, your ambitions, and threaten it. If you are dependent on those attachments for inner peace, they can twist you at will. Detachment does not mean indifference to life. It means holding everything lightly, caring without clinging, investing without dependency. You can love your family and still refuse to be manipulated through them. You can take pride in your work without letting criticism dismantle your confidence. You can hunger for achievement without letting setbacks shatter your soul. Detachment transforms desires into preferences, not chains. You prefer success, but you are not destroyed without it. You value approval, but you are not broken without it. And in that state, manipulation fails. Respect grows, fear emerges. For people sense instinctively when someone cannot be controlled. Machiavelli wrote that the esteemed ruler is rarely conspired against, for respect shields better than affection. Detachment makes you that figure, respected, untouchable, enigmatic. Those who attempt to harm you discover their weapons clatter uselessly against stone. Consider those you've seen who appear invulnerable. They are not careless, nor without ambition. They are simply not desperate. Their calmness unnerves others more than anger could. Their refusal to beg for recognition makes people respect them. Their ability to stand whole regardless of external turmoil makes them unforgettable. To develop this strength, practice treating both success and failure as temporary. Celebrate victories without gripping them too tightly. Study defeats without letting them define you. Value relationships while never collapsing into dependency. Each practice loosens the grip of external control. Each practice builds the fortress of inner calm. When you reach this level, you find yourself immune to the chaos that consumes others. Provocations lose their hooks. Insults lose their sting. Manipulations dissolve into dust. You do not need to prove strength because your composure already proves it. You do not need to fight every battle because you have already won the war within. If you have followed through to this point, you now hold knowledge most will never possess. These laws are not abstract theories, but tools you can begin applying immediately. Indifference strips manipulators of control. Silence unsettles aggressors more than argument. Emotional mastery denies enemies their advantage. Systems embed discipline until it becomes reflex. Calculation ensures you only fight when the victory matters. Detachment seals you into a state of calm that no one can breach. Apply them piece by piece. Begin with one, perhaps silence, perhaps indifference, and live it until it becomes instinct. Then add another and another until the collection of laws merges into your nature. You will notice people pause before speaking to you. You will see them hesitate before provoking you. You will feel the freedom of being immune to forces that enslave others. The world will seem different, not because it changed, but because you did. Respect will follow, not because you demanded it, but because you embody it. Fear will follow, not because you sought it, but because your calmness makes you unreadable. And above all, you will find peace, the peace of knowing that no insult, no betrayal, no manipulation can disturb your sovereignty. This is the state of the untouchable. This is the crown of the strong. Few will ever wear it, but if you practice with discipline, it will be yours.